You're running full speed, but the markets are faster. Quasar Markets Live brings the world's top financial minds to you. Everything you need to know in one place. Learn from elite educators and gain a competitive edge, leveling the playing field for you. Join the conversation. Quasar Markets Live.
Good morning, Quasar Markets Live. Howard here with your pre-market prep. Get you ready for your trading day. Hope everyone had a fantastic weekend. Monday, and not much has changed, really. We're going to start the show with oil, as we have over the last several days. It is the #1 driver in the markets right now. And we see WTI trading at about 95 towards the lows here this morning. But again, higher high and a higher low versus what we saw on Friday's close. But again, to put things into perspective, over the weekend where you can really see what oil is trading at on Hyperliquid, the decentralized perpetual future contract, we saw it get as high as about 104. So we saw a spike more over the weekend, and we've seen it sort of the rhetoric come down a little bit. We've heard the talk that the president is trying to coordinate, right, with other nations to start to get the strait moving again, or things moving through the strait again. So that part has, hopefully we'll start to get some good news there, but we haven't seen really, any confirmations that will do that. Then this week we've got the Fed starts tomorrow, their meetings, and there'll be a lot going on there. We know, again, Friday a judge did not side with the administration, and the District of Columbia's attorney, who was wanted to subpoena Fed Reserve Chairman Powell. She has District Attorney, or U.S. Attorney Pirro has said she's going to appeal the decision. And that, becomes a different issue here for a couple of reasons, because it actually could delay things as opposed to speed them up and leave Powell in office longer. The exact opposite of what the desired result was. And the reason there is, again, Senator Tillis, and there's, I believe, others have made it clear they won't vote on the confirmation of Kevin Warsh unless this thing's settled and there's going to be no case against Powell. So it is definitely going to be a little bit of rhetoric going on there. That doesn't seem to be ending. So, you've got the Fed's going to be front and center this week. Talk about the Fed's going to be front and center this week. And then otherwise, it's all about oil prices right now. Volatility index is down about 8% from Friday. Still elevated, though. Folks are paying a premium to hedge versus volatility. It's still trading at about 25, so up, 18's about neutral. As you can see here, we normally trade somewhere in this 16 to 18 zone. So again, elevated, nowhere near as elevated as the middle of last week or the beginning of last week, but still something to keep your eye on. Rates have meandered down to the downside, and I don't mean meander, they've actually come down pretty significantly, about 1.5% here. We had been pushing highs middle and end of last week, 3.76, now 3.67 on the 2-year. The 10-year is at 4.23, and again, that was up closer to 4.3. And the 30-year also trending to the downside. So that does help risk on assets. Same thing, the dollar back below 100 here. That's good for risk on assets. Gold just jumped back above 5,000. Quite honestly, had broken below 5,000 for the first time in a little bit here. So under a little bit of pressure, metals, both gold and silver trading towards the bottom of the zone, as you can see here on the daily chart. And silver broke back below 80 here, did bounce off the bottom of the linear regression nicely. But again, those have been under pressure. What has not been under pressure over the weekend is crypto. Bitcoin broke above 74,000, got to a higher high that we've seen since the last capitulation event on February 5th, breaking up to about 74,450, depending on the exchange you were looking at. A lot of that changed Saturday afternoon as news started to come out about the amount of money that had been raised by MicroStrategy through their STRC product. And the fact that we know Michael Saylor doesn't wait long to allocate that money into Bitcoin buys. So between his buy, which we'll get, I don't know if it's come out yet. Give me 1 second here. The exact amounts have come out yet. Yep, they bought 22,000 Bitcoin, another $1.57 billion worth. And again, between that and Metaplanet had a $250 million purchase too. Those two companies and their raises are starting that flywheel effect again, and the ETF inflows. So we've got more room to squeeze. I'll point out some things, though, that, keep in mind, spot volume isn't keeping up with the perpetual futures volume, even with these huge buys by MicroStrategy, by the other digital asset treasury companies, again, that are stepping in. So that flywheel that's pushing us up rather rapidly right now and being exasperated by a short squeeze, we come down just as hard when that sort of wears out if we don't see regular retail spot volume. So the key is going to be watching Coinbase and Binance and everything today. And do we see spot numbers move, not the perpetual futures? Same thing, Ethereum up at 2287. I love it, but is it going to be sustainable and not? Biggest news over the weekend on Ethereum, well, a couple things. Vitalik said there are still changes they need to make to the protocol quicker than later to, improve it and keep up with other chains. I like to hear that from them. And then the Ethereum Foundation did make a $50 million sale of their Ethereum over the counter to Tom Lee and the folks at Bitminer Version. So that was sort of the big news there over the weekend. Overseas markets have been fairly mixed. Asia started off weak, came on towards the end. European stock market up about 0.5% now, so that could lead us again to the upside. And with all that being said, what is it leading to in the pre-market so far? Is all three indices are moving to the upside. The NASDAQ, the leader so far, up about 1.13%. And if we look at the Qs as our reference point there, trading at about 639, up 1.12% again, and towards highs of the morning. The S&P is up just a little less than 1% here this morning at 668.38, and again towards highs of the morning. And a similar look from the Dow Jones, up 72 or 3/4 of a percentage point here at 469.79, and also looking fairly strong. So again, we're seeing some broad market risk on across everything. Big news, or where is everyone going to be focused today? A big part of the focus today is going to be on Nvidia. They're up about 1.63%. This is as they go into their annual GTC conference. We're going to get our keynote speech from Mr. or CEO Wong, and that is usually a pretty big thing here. They're gonna want to see, keep a name more there, even more so than Nvidia. I'll be listening to see what do they say about the memory sector, right? Who are they partnering with? We've seen what NBIS did on Friday last week after their announcement there. So what other names get a bump from there? And keep in mind, that can be connections to data center names. That can be, listen to partnerships within the data centers that they're building. They put a lot of names out last time that were some of the smaller names that do the picks and shovels. Within that part, what do we see there from them? Do they talk about any companies that do cooling for them that are part of the HVAC? Any companies that are part of the rack systems like RXT that got the big pump last time, which is one of the companies that's, helping them build out data centers. All those different names. So it's not just about Nvidia. It's going to be about any partnership deals that are talked about, any other connections there. And usually the inverse, I haven't looked yet this morning, but AMD is the one that normally goes opposite. So let's see what they're doing here. They're still up 1.13% also, but that's usually the one that gets hurt when Nvidia starts to take off. Looking through, but that's going to be a big, like I said, that's going to be a big talking point all week, as that conference goes on. Mag 7 in general, very strong here this morning. Apple up about 67 basis points here, back above the 250 spot at 251.80. Google up 58 basis points, nice little slide to the upside. Microsoft up 57 basis points. Amazon almost up a full point. And Meta up almost 3%. This is on news that they will announce layoffs. So again, we've talked about the unfortunate connection that has recently been when companies announce that they're laying people off, cutting headcount. It has been, there's no other way to say it. It's been a boost to their stock prices, right? So that is definitely going to be, part of what keeps us in play all week. So we'll be keeping an eye there. And Tesla up about 1.4% here. Again, biggest talk there has been around the robo-taxis. So we'll see what they have to say. Netflix pretty flat, as sort of the news of their stepping away from the acquisition or attempted acquisition of Warner Brother Discovery sort of has them pretty straight. Everything is great, Zora. Hope all is well with you this Monday morning also. And then things to keep, or earnings to keep an eye on today. We do have Dollar Tree before the bell. And we just had Enterprise and Empire State Manufacturing. I didn't see the numbers. We'll take a look and see what they were in a second. Earnings tomorrow. Lululemon's about the biggest. Wednesday's a pretty big day. You got Macy's on the retail side. You got Micron on the memory side. And then Thursday, we get Darden Restaurants and FedEx. I do think FedEx is probably the biggest, if not FedEx. Micron and FedEx together are the two biggest earnings that I'll be keeping an eye on here. economic data. We get some PMI data this week. We get, as we said, FOMC, not just here, but we have several central banks around the globe that will be having their rate decisions this week. So we'll see a lot of that. Let's take a look at the different sectors of the S&P so far this morning. What's moving up, what's moving down. And so far, it's pretty solid all around. We see we do see every sector of the S&P so far slated to open in the green, or at least pre-market trading in the green. Technology up 1.48% seems to be the winner so far. Also see industrials up 1% this morning. Laggard seems to be energy, and materials have been mostly the laggard that we've seen here in the pre-market. Taking a look at the winners and losers so far, I mentioned NBIS, NBIS. Tech name up about 12% here this morning. It's actually pulled back a little bit from the highs of the morning. This is after now news that Meta is partnering with them. So NBIS, which got the news of NVIDIA's investment the other day, moving back up after they struck what could be a $27 billion deal with Meta. Under the terms of the agreement, NBIS will provide $12 billion of dedicated capacity for Meta starting next year. Sticking in the tech area, Micron is up pretty nicely this morning also. Storage names all moving up. This is after analysts lifted their price target to $500. Chipmaker also announced that they plan to build a second manufacturing facility at its site in Taiwan by the end of 2026. That does, in sympathy, also have a couple of the other names up. Keep an eye on SanDisk. Up about 3.6% here this morning. Seagate is another one. STX. Up about 3.3%. And lastly, Western Digital, which we can see is up almost 4% today after a strong day on Friday also. So again, memory chip names are on the move today. So that's a good one to keep an eye on. We'll also say with that, keep an eye on NVIDIA's conference, because they will give you a lot of insights into that memory names. They'll talk about them, and that will be a good channel check for us. Also, I mentioned Meta. Meta is on one of the biggest movers this morning, up 3.21%. This is after announcements or release or being reported that 20% of their employees could be laid off. They have about 80,000 employees. Meta did dismiss the report as speculative reporting about theoretical approaches. So we'll see what we get there, but we'll find out one way or the other. I did mention Dollar Tree. They are up about 1.84%, had some decent earnings. The budget retailer had adjusted earnings of about $2.56 a share, which beat analyst estimates. Their net sales rose 9% to $5.45 billion, right in line with what Wall Street was looking with. And comparable sale growth at stores for at least a year came into 5%, a little bit above what Wall Street expected there. Guidance was more cautious than ambitious. They're targeting adjusted earnings of about $1.45 to $1.60 for the current quarter. It was a little bit below what Wall Street's looking for there. And they see all retailer also sees sales coming in right around 5 billion. So right a little bit above analyst expectations there. And that outlook does come on the heels of similar conservative guidance from Dollar General. So a little bit of pressure on that weaker side of the K economy, but with sales continuing to increase or revenue continuing to grow and same store sales moving to the upside, investors are liking what they see so far. So they are up nicely. On the other side of that, because gold and silver have been under some pressure, so have those stocks. We see Newmont NEM down between Friday and today's pre-market almost 5% here as the price of gold tanked since the Iran war started. So, normally that is where we see money flow into, but we know with the movement that we have seen across the oil markets, that's really where the money has been moving. So a little bit different than expectations there for sure. And other names there, FCX actually up this morning about 1.47%. So there are some names, but they were down more, 4.78% on Friday. And then, of course, the crypto adjacent names with Bitcoin moving up are all in the green. Some notable moves there. SharpLink up about 7.5% here between Friday and this morning's pre-market. Also, Circle up another 5.2%. They've been strong in general over the past few weeks. Coinbase up about 3.82% in the pre-market. I mentioned earlier, BMNR made a big purchase from the Ethereum Foundation directly. That was sort of Ethereum's big news over the weekend, an over-the-counter sale of $50 million in Ethereum. And then you also have all of the data center Bitcoin mining names. Mara up another 6% here this morning. You can see BitDeer, Cipher Mining, CleanSpark, and Iron all up 5% or more this morning. So crypto adjacent names still have room to move to the upside. We could still see a squeeze here. We now have room up to about 76K if they really go after the upside liquidation heat map right now. So there is room for those to continue to run as the day gets moving here. Keep taking a look at the tick and advanced decline. We do see this is a pretty broad market move to the upside, 2,825 right now on advanced decline. Tick's been fairly positive most of the morning. And like I said, all three indices are set to open up in the green so far this morning. Let's take a look at what else is on the gainers and laggards. As I said, most names crypto related: SharpLink, CoreWeave, Mara, BitDeer, IREN, CleanSpark, TerraWolf, all on the crypto side. We got a couple of, I mentioned, NBIS is the big winner, up about 11.4%, but pulling back from highs of the morning after their partnership with Meta was announced. We do see some of the semi names also getting love here. Tower Semiconductor, TSEM, up almost 6% here this morning. Another one that got NVIDIA news recently, Poet Technology, up another 5.71% here. And then, it's really, again, crypto adjacent names. Some of those storage names are getting some pretty good love today. Micron, Western Digital, SanDisk, and Seagate. Also, some of those other names that seem to run when risk on is in play: HIMX, LITE, Upstart Holdings. All of those are also moving to the upside this morning. On the laggard side, we do see one of the high flyers from last week, CF Industries, which is agriculture and especially fertilizer. We know that that is an offshoot um, of the disruption through the straits, but they are down about 5% after having a very, very solid end of the week last week. We do see Dow similarly in that area that's down about 1.58. Do see some energy names also kind of weak. Oh, and Mosaic also when it comes to fertilizer names that are down. Non-energy mineral names like Aura, AUGO, Newmont, as I mentioned, NEM, Royal Gold, RGLD, SSR Mining, all of those are down also here this morning. Energy names as oil and gas pull back from those weekend highs. Like I said, they were around 103, 104 over the weekend through Hyperliquid. So they're getting a little bit of a pullback here. And Devon Energy, DVN, Exxon Mobil, XOM, ConocoPhillips, all down slightly this morning. Defense names also down. Lockheed Martin, Patterson, UTI Energy also down. PTEN. So those are the things that are getting hit a little bit. Some of the defensive names like Waste Management and Kenvue also down so far this morning in pre-market trading. Those are the big things that we're watching so far this morning. Not really else. I mean, it's going to be tweet analysis. It's going to be NVIDIA's, GTC conference all week. And then it's central bank, one after another. There's several of them going this week. In fact, including our Fed that kicks it off on Wednesday. We'll see what happens there. Volatility so far, fairly subdued, down about 7% at 25. So still elevated versus our normal levels. People are still paying a premium for volatility hedging, but not nearly as high as we'd seen over the last couple of weeks. And when we look at the sectors of the S&P, so far, we do see that all of them are in the green this morning. And the same thing, Mag 7, all in the green. So everything's pointing to a risk on day. BigBeat's getting ready to come in. I see he's back from vacation and swimming with the dolphins. Good to have the man back. So let's run his intro and get the big man in here today.
When markets move, Stephen E. Orr takes the chair. From the White House to Wall Street, he's spent decades at the intersection of policy, markets, and real capital. And he's seen firsthand how institutions use data behind closed doors. Now, as founder of Quasar Markets, his mission is to pull those signals into the open so everyone can see what really moves the markets. This is Stephen E. Orr, BigBeat on Wall Street. Let's filter the future live.
He's back from vacation. I'm jealous, nice and tan, swimming with dolphins, drinking some margaritas. How you doing today, my friend?
I'm good. Look, one of the things about when you get away a little bit is to do what I normally do is channel checks, right? I get to find out what's really going on in the world. And, a lot of people just sit behind, and I do the same thing, sit behind a computer and a screen, and you don't really get to know what's really going on in the world. You're most of it's based on what you read and see and hear, and not what you actually know and what's going on. Howard, a couple of things that I had a chance to have a sit down. It is spring break, and on the cruise there were several people on it that were college age students trying to get away, and I had three takeaways from it. It was interesting. They're how they feel about the world right now, and they are not happy. They feel like that they're being left out in this economy, and they are. I heard comments like, I don't even want to work. I just want to get married and have a kid and be done with it, right? Then I've heard things like, AI, I'm learning AI while I do my job, but I'm going to be an accountant and I'm nervous, right? Or I've heard things like, oh, I'm going to be a dentist. I'm going to be fine because I have to use my hands and nothing's going to replace that. There's this, I know I'm screwed, so forget about it. This, well, I'm going to try to do something about it. And third, they're just ignoring it. So those three things tell me that the future doesn't look. I'm always an optimist, but those three things, we need to change their outlook on life, because we're going to be in trouble if that's the case.
Yeah, and I saw a thing today where they were talking about that, how AI, they're digging their own ditch, because, you know, like I talked about, the people who are using AI to make themselves better, to, you know, give better results, to provide better information, are going to win. The ones that just copy and paste off of it are going to be easily replaced by it, because if you're just forwarding a report to your manager that you know, copy and pasted off of it without adding your analysis, without doing things, then why do they need you?
Right. I mean, I've always said this. AI is for one reason. It's efficiency, to make you more efficient. I have my idea. Here's my idea, ChatGPT. Help me out. Here's my idea, Anthropic, formulate it. And there's so many people that are still not getting it, that it's not one AI, it's several AIs to make a better situation. And, you know, it's like, Howard, I think people are having trouble. You know, the economy is not as good as everybody thinks it is. You know, I keep hearing about it.
That definitely comes into play. We'll see that more and more talk, you know, and also the differences, right? That the different states, you know, I saw a great article in Wall Street Journal this weekend that was comparing red versus blue states and what they're doing in regards to taxes. You know, and you know, people are moving. You know, we saw Uber CEO, now he's gone. We've seen more and more moving down to your area of Tampa, you know, more down to Miami, more down to Texas. You know, we're going to continue to see that. Mortgage rates, you know, houses are more affordable, but no one can afford the mortgages.
And that's part of the whole thing. I mean, I think a lot of people don't really understand exactly how the economy is swooping in, right? Look, there's a couple of things that you have to think about in the movement, right? They're moving because they want lower taxes. Okay, well, these states that say, okay, well, we're going to have lower taxes, and like my state, no state income tax, which is great, but everybody here is either wealthy or they work at the McDonald's. So there's not this, you're going to have more money because or you're a bartender, right? Or you're in the hotel business. And the rich people the disparity in these no income tax states are becoming different too. And you're looking at Texas, and I've said this since the beginning, that Texas is going to turn blue. And it's doing that, right? And that's what they're worried about. That's why they're trying to push this new SAVE Act. And it's definitely not about. It's not about. It's not. It's a silly bill. If you ever get just to actually dig your heels into it, and read about it, it's not a very good act. And actually, almost all those rules are already in place. So I don't really understand that rule. But what's interesting, Howard, is I read an article in the Wall Street Journal this morning about this company that put humanoid robots in their place in South Carolina, right? This is not in some liberal state, liberal state, boogie, woogie, woogie, or a Republican state. Oh my God, you know, they're going to replace my jobs and take away my guns. This is where a South Carolina company is saying that we can't wait to put more humanoids in because they work. And we've talked about robots on this show until I'm blue in the face, I guess, never read, is that you better get ready for the future. The future does not look the way that these kids are thinking about. These kids are thinking about the future in a way, I don't want to work. Okay. Are they thinking that UBI is coming and it's going to save their behinds? I don't know. I didn't get a chance to that because they weren't really happy. You know, it just seemed that they were in a different state than I expected them to think about, right? And a lot of them had never taken a cruise or been out of the country. It was very shocking to them to see how Mexico is not burning down. It was very shocking to them to see that other countries were okay. I went fishing, and nobody talked about the world. It was a very negative connotation towards the United States. It's very negative. We need to think about things as we talk about it. Look, I really think that Cuba is going to go to the United States, and I don't disagree with that one. I'm not sure that I like, let's starve them to death before we take them over. I don't know if that's the best way of doing things, but we now got problems. I mean, you talk about Ukraine. Ukraine is now sending drone help to the front line of Israel. Israel's now fighting not only Iran, but they're fighting Lebanon too. And ground troops have now hit the ground. Marines have now hit the ground in the United States that are going into Iran from Karg Island and everything else. This is turning in as interesting. And we've talked about this. That the problem with the Strait of Hormuz is oil going to China, and the Iranians are saying, okay, fine. So I'm still dumping oil. I'm still saying oil is not in trouble. We have so much of it. We're exporters of oil. You know what I'm saying? We're happy that oil is $100 a barrel. I'm not, because I'm shorting it, and I know why. And my thesis hasn't changed. But we're pushing it. So the oil producers are doing very well. The oil producers are where? Texas, Louisiana, southwest of Arizona, refineries are doing okay because they're pushing oil to the refinery, but they're having a little trouble. But here's the problem: it's the movement of oil now. So it's you got to grease those wheels in every place where oil moves. So when you talk about the problem in Iran and Lebanon, you talk about the problem in Iran and the United States, and you talk about the problem with Israel. You talk about the problem in Ukraine because Ukraine needs natural gas. Natural gas is going to flow into Europe. All of these things start to slow down. Russia goes, well, we will continue to supply natural gas. All of a sudden, you've got this whole thing. The world's connected.
Oh yeah.
And if they don't like us, then that's a problem. If prices go up, that's a problem. If refineries can't handle this new glut of oil, that's a problem. If we can't get oil to places, that's a problem. There's a lot of issues here. That creates chaos, and that's what we're seeing now. That's why volatility is up. That's why there's a premium on volatility. But I do think that if we can get to the summer, I think these things will abate, and that's why I'm long Royal Caribbean. That's why I'm short oil. And of course today I'm doing quite well. So I like this, but the thesis is I got to stay on track, or we're going to be in real serious trouble because we're on the edge of a lot of problems here, folks. And if any of this starts to crack in a lot bigger ways, we're going to have problems. Even Scott Bessent is very nervous as Secretary of Treasury. He's very nervous. And you're starting to see now where even the Federal Reserve, the board, is starting to get a little nervous too, saying, okay, well, you know what? They've been saying, oh, well, jobs are okay. Jobs aren't okay. U6 number is extremely high. It's higher now. People were getting
everybody's laying people off. I mean, we're seeing it from every company, in general.
But hey, Bitcoin's up 74,000, so I'm happy.
Yeah, I would warn though, this is the flywheel effect. It's MSTR. They raised, like $1.5 billion through STRC. They bought Metaplanet, bought Bitmine Immersion, bought. So we have that going and no real spot volume buy-in to back it up. So what comes up will come down. I love it. Yeah. And we got room to squeeze to 76 today. We got the way the heat map set up for liquidations. There's still upside, but it's not, so far we're not seeing the buying that says this is the march back up. This is more, again, it's just a rally in the down market. So keep your eye on it. In fact,
and I just turned to my screen to the right hand side. I have all the newspapers on my right side, and the Washington Post biggest article right now: Trump sold young voters on his vision. Many are having buyer's remorse. It's right there on the front page, right? Yeah. I didn't even see it till this morning. I'm like, yep, that's exactly right. It's just what's going on, and I feel for this new generation. I really do.
Yeah, no, I don't argue at all there. It's exactly right. It's, and they're, like you said, disassociated from what's really going on. And it doesn't seem to be anything that's drawing them back into it. So, that definitely weighing on the market. Steve, we've got several central banks this week with their rate decisions. Do you think we'll hear more talk about rate hikes out of the Fed this week? Out of our Fed, I guess I should say.
Rate hikes. The Fed is walking a very fine line, Howard. No, I don't think it hikes. I think it's going to be they're backpedaling. There's no doubt about that. They are definitely backpedaling. They're going to have to explain their situation because they were wrong. They've been wrong, and they're still wrong. And they're going to have to explain it. Why are they not cutting rates? We know Trump is going to replace. We already know what's going to happen there with another one coming out. So, they're still in the majority of
part and parcel of the problem. Friday, while you were away, I'm sure you saw it. You know, the judge said this is ridiculous. You're just being punitive. And they doubled down, and the U.S. Attorney Pirro said, we're going to keep it going. If they keep it going, Tillis is still not going to confirm Warsh. You're keeping Powell there longer.
Well, again, the first thing out of my mouth was the SAVE Act, right? And they're saying now that he's not going to do anything until the SAVE Act gets passed. So I don't know. And politically, the political side of me says that they're playing right into the hands of Democrats. That's why they're being quiet, and that's why the Democrats. I saw the new poll numbers that AI and Democrats are at the very bottom of the poll. Right, so Republicans know that. Democrats don't know what to do. They're being quiet. So that's a problem. And so that right there is what I've said all along. That we have a lame duck president. That's good for the markets, folks. If you don't know, that's good. Actually good, because now we know nothing's going to change. So now we know what the rules are. They don't change. Then now you can invest, right? If you can't invest when you don't know what the president's going to say tomorrow. You don't know what's going to happen. With the crazy Democrats are going to do. Oh, we're going to put this person up. That we don't. It's nuts, right? That nuttiness is what scares people. But what doesn't scare people is when you actually know, okay, nothing's going to get done. Now I know how to invest. So that's actually a good thing. And I've said that for the last 3 months. And here we are.
Yeah, absolutely. Steve, NVIDIA's conference this week. That's the other big newsmaker, right? We're going to see, a lot of news out of there. What are you looking for? Anything specific? I look to see what they're going to, channel checks. Who do they mention they're building data centers with? Is there someone that comes up? Watch the PowerPoints behind them. They usually have names. Vertiv blew up on that one. Vistra is blowing up on that. NBIS blew up on that. We've seen a few of these that really take off. Is there anything you're looking for?
Yes, I'm looking for where. The question is not what or who. We already know the who. The who's NVIDIA. The who is the chip makers. The what is the actual data center, but the where is the issue. And the where, we're seeing lots of issues in Texas and Florida where people don't want the data centers near them because it sucks up their water and their electricity and all of that. Yeah, it gives them better jobs. But if you're going to put humanoids in those offices, like at Amazon or whatever, then there's no new jobs being made. That the construction comes in, the construction leaves, but that's a problem, right? And so I need to know where they're going to put these places, and they can't stick them in the desert because it's hot, and you got to keep the machines cold.
Right. And
the northern states are saying no to it. So there's kind of an issue here. So I want to hear what NVIDIA has to say with where are we putting the data centers? Where there's this growth at? And I have a sneaky suspicion it's going to be near all of these places that have energy, oil. But they're not going to stick it in Louisiana because of hurricanes. They're not going to stick it in Texas because it's hot. They're not going to.
No, it's coming here to Ohio because the governor also is very heavily involved in that business, right? That's what his business is he's, CEO of a public company that builds Bitcoin mining and data centers. So that's where it's going to get pushed through in states like that, where we also have Bernie Moreno as our senator, who's also very pro crypto, data center technology guy. So that's where you're going to see it. There is a lot of misinformation out there because I see it already, that like the fights at the little town centers, the little city I live in, people, it's going to take all our water. Well, they don't really use, that was the old days of data centers. They don't use much water anymore. They're all self-contained liquid cooling systems. They don't use regular water to do it. It's, glycol-based systems and these formulas that they use. So the different energy is a huge problem. And, hopefully they make that and come through that commitment to continue to build out their own energy, for it. That would help. But even there, you end up with problems because the infrastructure for it to connect to the grid and all that stuff, someone's got to do that. And I can tell you from the amount of, we're in the middle of these huge storms the last several days. And while I've been okay electric wise, the area has just been devastated.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, our backbone of our electricity is a question mark, right? We know that it's always been that way, and every substation in the United States. I mean, but we have, I'm gonna tell you, and I've lived through enough of these where the power goes out, hurricanes or whatever, that we have some pretty good linemen in this country, and they've been put to work. So I'm a big fan of linemen.
Absolutely, without a doubt. And that's how I knew that what was going on. I went to the grocery store yesterday, and there was just 30, 40 trucks all getting ready to head out. They were doing their logistics, getting their gas, and doing all that stuff. And yeah, they do an amazing job for sure. Steve, anything else you're watching here today? What do you think about gold and silver? Are you playing that now? They've made a pullback under 5,000. And
yeah, I mentioned that over the weekend that gold and silver is very weak. There's a lot of play here because when you look at banks and you look at Federal Reserves and you look at central banks buying gold, they're usually the last ones to buy things, right? They're willing to hold it forever because they can. It's no skin off their nose, right? And they're going to do that. But the retail side is kind of sick of silver and gold. And you saw that over the weekend going, I don't need this anymore. And they sold a lot of it off. And I think some of that did go into Bitcoin. I will tell you that I am watching the dollar, the Dixie, and I'm looking forward to having Steve Flanagan in here because the Dixie now pulling back off the 100 handle is. I mean, he said it was going to run to over. It could run over 100. It did, and it's back now. So I like that. I want to talk to him about that.
Well, with that being said, here he is. Let's bring him in. Let's get him in here, Mr. Flanagan. How are you doing this morning?
Morning, gents. Hope you had a good weekend. Welcome back, Steve. Markets are cautiously optimistic here today, huh?
Yeah, see, I mean, look, they just don't know what to do, right? I mean, there's just too many ifs and I almost said this. I'm going to do a thing about it. The biggest little word in the English language for the markets is if. If this happens, then the market goes up. Then if this happens, the market goes down. If this happens, and there's too many ifs, I think, in the market, Steve.
Yeah, I think there always are ifs, right? But you've got to trade with a vision. Markets right now are pushing that the geopolitical risk will be short term. Is this inflation accelerant? It's pushing back on rate cut expectations. I don't know. This is, what I termed last week, the Super Bowl for the financial markets. I thought we had 7 central banks meeting this week, but no, we've got 8 because I forgot Sweden.
Oh, yeah. I mean, when you think about the world in general right now, and you talk about all the time that we have way too many academics and not so many people that are actually doing the things. And I think I just said this on the show earlier that I had a nice chance to talk to some younger people. They don't really understand the markets the way that we understand it and being in it for so long, but it doesn't matter because they still have their money. They're still investing. But they're not looking at are they looking at the central banks going, ooh, what is the central banker talking about today? And when they grab their Robinhood account and are they looking at these? Are they looking at these bigger picture things, or are they just going, I can't wait to buy Robinhood stock and I can't wait to sell my Bitcoin or whatever?
Steve, that's a great point because when we look at the markets, we look at it and create an understanding.
Right.
I think a lot of people today, when they look at the market, they're being told via the narratives, via AI, what they should be looking at and focusing on. So, if you read, then you don't go into the understanding. To understand, you've got to get a scalpel out. You've got to begin to look beneath the hood. You got to start investigating. Does it make sense? Cross-reference the idea. For example, all the central banks will remain on hold probably this week.
Yeah.
What does that mean? What it means is stagflation is becoming a very real possibility throughout the world. Is the oil price hike short term? If it's a short term, then the central bank should be saying it is a short-term supply phenomena. Now let's look at the demand side. The demand side, okay, let's just take the United States alone. GDP 0.7.
Yeah.
Payrolls down 92,000. Unemployment up to 4.4%. Jay Powell's narrative as he exits is almost going to be etched now on his tombstone. Jay Powell behind the curve.
Wrong. I mean, that's what I said. Like, they have to continue to change the goalposts and the narrative every single time. And he always goes back to the same question. Look, my job is inflation, and my job is keeping 2%, and my job is to keep jobs in check, both of which have not worked at all. So their ideas of how you're right, the academic side of this isn't working for them. They need to get more involved in what's really going on. And I think that they're missing the bigger picture here.
Totally, Steve. I mean, let's just take the demand side of that equation. With the revisions, the entire 2025 had 15,000 jobs a month. What is that? For the Fed to not be concentrating on that view after this last number of minus 92,000, what the heck are they doing? The geopolitical is causing a short-term supply side spike in oil prices. Will it last? No, it won't, because the supply of oil is plentiful in the marketplace. You know, it's just a matter of getting through this period of probably, I think they said 4 weeks, 3 to 4 weeks. I was kind of hoping at 2 weeks. So we're now beyond my 2-week projection. Yeah, I am hoping, as Scott Bessent said, and there you go with your if this thing ends within 3 to 4 weeks, all will return to normal. Will the central banks pass up this opportunity to give a little bit to the marketplace?
And there you go. Scott Bessent now talking, says detailed talks with China and the new tariff authorities, says that there's a stability in the China relationship, and the purpose of talks is to prevent retaliation. So they're already acknowledging that the tariffs on China are a little tough, right?
Yeah, but meanwhile, China is just killing it with their trade, right? I mean, they $1 trillion in 2025, and they're starting off in January's numbers. Their trade surplus was bang, way above expectations. So I don't think China's worried about the whole trade. I think China is doing just what they need to do. And the U.S., you notice that you're now seeing a lot more of collaborative ideas. I would not be surprised to see China more involved in this Middle East skirmish here, in perhaps opening up the straits there. I mean, that's just my opinion.
I mean, they are one of the biggest importers of oil from that area, right? So I mean, they need that oil. They can't make this movement of product if they can't get oil.
And what would the world say to a collaborative effort with China involved now? Wow. I mean, would that be a first? That would just knock people's socks off.
I mean, the BRICS are a reason. They call them the BRICS for a reason, right? I mean, they're all together.
That's right. But China wants to be firmly in this, developing AI into this, as we call, this new kind of technology advancement. China wants to be front and center. Why not get more involved in a geopolitical in a positive manner, which maybe helps for peace and to quickly, end hostilities over there? So, Steve, what I wanted to talk about with you today is I really think that the marketplace right now, again, because of how this AI is working and that the headlines and so much of this AI social media narrative gets put into positions, I think that everybody is pigeonholed into a position. I think if you look at the oil market right now, from what I've researched, that the option calls are huge to the upside. Markets, are saying, hey, this could get worse. We could see well over $100. They've all bitten in. Now, if the market is so lopsided in a view, what else is there lopsided? Rates. Interest rates in the U.S. have gone up, right? Because that goes in line with a higher oil. The dollar, that also goes in line. I'm really worried right now, as I start a Monday off, that this market, if the Fed were to come out, okay, let's just say Jay Powell's no dummy. He's a smart man. He may be behind the curve, but this guy is a smart guy. if he suddenly leans on the idea that there still are rate cuts in mind here because of the economic numbers we've talked about, this market is so wrong positioned right now. And we could end up with a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday move that is explosive, which would be unwind of the shorts in the equity market. So that's equity up. Gold, silver probably drop hard. And oil, that's the key. That could drop really suddenly hard. So again, you're right. I'm putting an if out there, but when I say here ifs, I say if I'm trading, I have to have a vision. And that's, I think Jay Powell could surprise everybody because right now, all the central banks are going to be unchanged and everybody says they're all going to be hawkish. Steve, I don't hear you. You're muted.
I mean, I'm reading right now, it says every oil shock over the last 40 years that did not lead to a prolonged recession was followed by a strong rally. Oil shocks are historically brief and provide long-term buying opportunities. I agree with that. I think oil are going to just kaput. I mean, I honestly think so. I think gold and silver is way overvalued right here. And I think you're going to see a rally in crypto. I think you'll see a rally in stocks. I think you're going to see a rally. And I honestly, I think that the 10-year is probably going to have to fall out of bed in order to sustain this because people aren't buying homes right now. Yeah.
And reflect fundamentals, right? The fundamentals are 0.7 GDP and 92,000 loss of jobs. That's not higher rates in the U.S. So I really think that people we call this a correlation trade. In other words, they put one thing on, another thing on. And right now it's long oil, it's short positioned in the treasuries for higher rates, and it's long the dollar. I had expected the dollar to have a lot of trouble at 115. We the Dixie put a high in of 154, but now we're trading back at the 100 level. And I am looking for a move back down to around the 98, 30 to 50 zone. It may be short-lived. I do think that the dollar in general, you want to be buying the dollar because I think once you get into April, the United States, I think the Iran situation will be over with. And who knows if Cuba and the United States then knock out a deal. And, you've got a situation where the market has reacted as the dollar is the safe haven vehicle of the world. That's pretty clear right now. I don't want to be short the dollar. Not at all.
No way, Jose. I do not want to be short the dollar in any way, shape, form, or fashion. And in fact, I can see here that you can see the turn here. The curve is really clear now. So, yeah, I think the dollar goes right on up. It was interesting, Steve. I was in line at a store in Mexico, and an American lady was just screaming at the lady behind the desk, and she's like, "Oh, our dollar is just so weak right now. Our dollar is just so weak." And I'm like, "Man, you don't really know what you're talking about. Right now, the Mexican peso against the dollar is 18. It's also a knowledge of what is going on, right? That they don't really get the back end of all of this, right? And I'm seeing this from such a very clear picture that the dollar is still strong as hell. I mean, that we are still trading oil in dollars. And it's so much so that Iran is saying, we will open the Strait of Hormuz if you stop trading dollars in the oil, if you go into Chinese yuan. So even the enemies are acknowledging the issues here.
Yeah, Steve, that's a great point. And we talked about this weeks and weeks ago about the midpoint of the last 25 years for the dollar was, I think, 96.83. And here you are at 100. So you're when everybody was crying how bad the dollar is and how you had to be short, we were trading near the lows and we were just simply at the midpoint of 25 years. So yeah, the dollar's not a weak currency here.
And we are open now, so we are seeing a little bit of a push here. 280 now on. Look at that, nice little run on RCL. They're up 2% there. Bitcoin still around 74,000 here, so I'm liking that a lot. still holding up there. Q's pull back a little bit, but the 600 handle seems to be right where it's at. There's really not much going on here, and I don't see the volume is not really that strong either. You can see that too as well.
What do you think? What do you think of this stock, Steve? I've been watching, and I actually dabbled in RCAT.
Okay, yeah, all right, let's pull it up. Cat Holdings obviously go up 2% here. When do you start the buy here, Steve?
Last week on all this, the drone technology and stuff.
Yeah. And that's one of the things I think we talked about this morning on the show. I like it. I think drone technology is going to be hot, and I think every country in the world knows that drones are now how we fight wars, and because we've seen it firsthand. And I think drones are going to stockpiles of drones are going to be happening. So now I like the narrative here. I like the chart here. Probably $20, $25 a share, probably the next month or two.
Yep, I'm an FX guy, but I like to dabble and play in equities. You're the expert in that area, Steve. So
not always.
Yeah.
Oops. Dang it! I'm trying to take some profit here on Royal Caribbean here a little bit. See how we do here.
And how did you find Mexico, Steve? That's an important observation point.
Man, it's not changed one bit. They don't care about the United States. They're not thinking about us at all. I can tell you that right now.
I mean, it's the U.S.'s largest trading partner, and rightfully so. I really have high hopes once this meeting begins in June, as they reestablish the USMCA and revisit that. I have high hopes for the China. Canada, I'm not sure.
Here's a good observation that I had. Mexico is one of the biggest sellers and producers of silver, and nobody was buying silver in any of the stores because it was just too high. That I noticed.
That's an.
I went into several stores where I actually knew the owner of the place, and one guy was like, no one's buying any silver anymore. See, it's just too expensive. They can't, they don't like it. What over there costs, $5,000 is now $20,000 now, to buy that big chunk of silver. So I said, yeah, that's a very interesting point there. So yeah, I'm seeing that quite a bit here. Oh my, 280 now on Royal Caribbean here.
So we have up on the schedule here tonight, RBA, Reserve Bank of Australia. They're actually talking about raising rates 0.25% up to 4.1%. Pretty much because of this supply shock. I mean, they're still running at a high inflation rate. We look at Australia. Australia is a commodity-based currency. That's the way we would view that. I'm really thinking that they're making a very bad move. This would be their second rate rise. And if they do it, I really think that Australia could be in for a little bit of a shell shock because, one way or another, they've got to participate in the globe, and interest rates, should not be going up. They should be going down. Canada today announced CPI 1.8% on the year. That's down from 2.3%. Back to this, does the United States think we run, we stand alone in the world? Everybody else is experiencing lower inflation. But now Canada is overshot. They're below 2%.
Right.
Bank of Japan comes up. Bank of Japan, this oil shock is going to limit their ability to raise rates because they're going to be very fearful because they're 100% importer of oil, and they'll expect an economic slowdown. And then we have Bank of England. Oh, my goodness. CPI is down to 3%, still well above their 2%, but they are just making mistake after mistake and just layering it on top of consumers. And they're probably going to also be very hawkish in their analysis, which I think is another reason I want to just, start selling sterling. But the big one, I think, is the ECB, because they are between a rock and a hard place. Economic growth is, they say, it's looking rosy at 1.2%, for the year. and they're projecting the next 2 years to be about the same. I just think that you're going to end up with a situation where Italy is going to put their hand up and say, listen, you guys are killing us.
I agree.
And I think that Europe has got a significant problem. And let me just briefly, if I can, 1999, the euro came in, all the regional currencies folded into the euro dollar. By 2003, 2004, they were supposed to have a political union, but they never did. Now they have the European Union, which is a shadow government that oversees all of Europe, but every one of those countries still has a domestic government in place. Now, if the people vote for a domestic government, such as an Italian prime minister, and the EU suddenly overrides the will of the people, which they do often, we'll hear about that in our press, but how long is that situation going to be allowed to continue? So I'm looking definitely on any rally up above 118 to be selling the euro dollar. I kind of hope with the euro right now at 114.78, 114.80, I think, if we do see a 200-point move up in the euro back to 116, because it has come down sharply, it's a great sell zone.
Yeah. So here's what Steve is talking about, the 118 way up here. I'm going to pull up a daily chart so you understand. I love this play here, Steve. I love this a lot because you can see, and we talk about it all the time, the rounding. Look at this. Steve's right. Look at that. So
you see a little bit of a move back up now, Steve.
Yeah, and 118 would put it here. I don't like that because I'm going to have to go to Europe. So I'm not really happy about that. But more
realistically, Steve, you would come back to those tops on your left there, the immediate tops, which is probably a 115, 116 zone. And that's probably your beginning sell. If you were to get above 118, something's, dramatically changed in the mix here. But when you trade currency, sometimes you need to trade with a vision and a view, not just a day trade. And when I'm talking this position, I am looking for a view. I am looking to establish a long dollar versus Europe. Because honestly, put me on the market. Where do I think the euro is going to go in my projection, in my time frame? I think I could pick euro, unwind my position down around parity, 100, or maybe 102, somewhere in that zone. I think that the euro could face that type of calamity ahead.
Looking at MongoDB here, MDB, I've been a buyer of this one. I'm still holding a little bit of MongoDB. There's this huge gap right here. I like this gap. Probably get back out 200, 308 there. I like this move here, up almost 5% today. Good day, the markets. I mean, we're pushing higher here, down about 300, NASDAQ up about 1.23%. So, and we're still seeing more selling in oil, and the Dixie now slipping a bit here. So you're right. The euro is a good buy here. I like this play here, Steve.
I think the market has got themselves caught. They're all heavily long oil in options.
Yeah.
And I think that they are short treasuries and long the dollar as well. It's a correlation trade. And I think people are looking out for the central banks going, is the stagflation a real subject? And I believe it is.
Okay, good. I was going to say, I think it is, actually.
Yeah, in which case, the central banks of the world, okay, if you don't want to talk about it and you want to keep rates firm and be hawkish, well, you are all but assuring a global recession ahead. And is that what they're looking? I mean, are our central banks going to be rearview mirror driven? Or are they going to start to look out and see the tea leaves in front of us, which we as investors do?
We're seeing oil output in Kuwait and in UAE. I'll post these out too as well for everybody to see as well. We're seeing Kuwaiti oil output falling about 1.3 million barrels there, and versus 2.6. So they're cut in half, as well as UAE cutting their oil to about 2 million barrels from 3.56 million, which is actually good for the United States as an oil exporter. So this actually works in our favor.
And what about Russian oil, Steve? I understand that is starting to get to the marketplace.
It is. I mean, I think the problem with Russian oil is just it's not as good oil as WTI sweet oil, right? The crack spread's a little higher too. It's harder to. It's very thick oil, and so Russian oil isn't the best. Russia has the play of the day, and that's natural gas, right? They win in natural gas all day, every day. They just got so much of it. Wow, Bitcoin really pushing here. Looks
I
like
mean,
there's
Bitcoin has weathered the storm. I know Howard's put out a couple of levels, but I think that again in that marketplace, that just too many people bit into this negative narrative that it was going to fall out of bed.
yeah.
And like, if is that a daily chart there, Steve? I mean, because look at that.
It
bottom.
is, yeah. Yeah,
Look at the bottom there.
Yeah, it's clean to me. This thing is very clean. Yeah, I like this rounding bottom here. This is really good. I mean, yes, it's a 2-month bottom here, but we're breaking out now here, and I like this. Yeah, I get it that the 1 minute chart is clean, but this is really good here. I think on Bitcoin. Remember, Bitcoin's dead. I heard that in every newspaper. I heard that in the Financial Times. I heard that in the Wall Street Journal. I heard that and it's really not. So in fact, it's the opposite. So yeah, I like this. Looking at SCO here, I am short oil. I do own SCO. I'm feeling the pain right now a little bit, Steve, but it's not that crazy pain here. I don't think so.
Steve, that's the type of market. One headline that says that there's some sort of conclusion, and that's a 5 to 10% move, down in the oil price. So,
which would be 10 to 20% in the SCO, right? SCO does look at oil from a perspective of futures, right? So it's not just one-to-one in spot. Okay, so yeah, I'm liking all of this. It looks like the markets really are responding. Dow's up over 400 points here, so I like this.
I think that the bottom line, Steve, at the end of the week is I think the reality of the situation will be that the inflation expectation is a supply-driven phenomena out of this geopolitical event, which is in Iran. And I think that the demand side of that people will pay attention to. And when that happens, that's lower rates.
Yeah, you see the VXX, the VIX now dropping here, down 5% of the day. So people are feeling that way.
Yeah, I got to get through Wednesday because that's, a lot of central banks, what do we have Wednesday? We have the Bank of Canada, the Fed, and then on the 19th, I'm not concerned, but this could be the stimulus is ECB and Bank of England when they both put their nose up in the air and start talking about raising rates because of inflation. That could be the kibosh on everything. But I think that really just singles out the U.S. And I think the U.S., that could be the pivot point where everybody just falls to the wayside. The dollar could be, this could be a short-term dip here. I definitely will be long dollars probably at the conclusion of Wednesday. I want to wait and see what the Fed has to say. I'm expecting the Fed to make a major pivot here. I think they'll open the door to at least 2 rate cuts ahead.
I'd like to see that, but I just don't think that's the case. We're seeing noise now that's saying that the U.S. is allowing Iranian oil to pass through the Strait of Hormuz. So that's huge. I mean, that's telling me that something's happening here.
That's telling me, Steve, that there are negotiations that are going on. Look, we all know that whether you agree or don't agree, irrelevant. Let's put that aside with what we've done into Iran. But the benefit of not having terrorism, of not having the fear of the last 30 years that the Straits of Hormuz could close and oil, eliminating that from the environment is a big positive in the world. And I think no matter what your political views are, that Iran that participates in the global economy is a bigger plus than a negative.
But they have hit all of their neighbors.
That's why there will be a change in government. I think what you're going to see, Steve, soon is a rising up of the other side. I don't know if the new supreme leader has been hit. I mean, I've read accounts that he's been injured. The writing on the wall is you've got to change your ways. And Iran threatening the world that this is going to be a long, drawn-out process, that's not a good way to go.
Right. But it doesn't seem that the Iranian people that are they're not rising up the way that they had before, right? They're very nervous. They're very scared.
I think they're being told to stay back. Remember, U.S. controls all, the airwaves, and they're sending text messages out. And, I think that, why would you run to the streets right now when the last time you did, I don't know what the numbers are, but they say over 20,000 people were killed by the Iranian National Guard. So, yeah, I mean, it's crazy. So I think they're waiting. And right. I think once the word is given, I think it'll be a very strong surge. The Iranian people are a very proud people. I've had the pleasure of working with many of them over the years. And I think that when the time is right, they will put that country back in order.
Israel expects Iran war to continue at least until April, and the Lebanon conflict longer. So Israel still wanting to fight. We got to slow down Netanyahu. What's going on with him?
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I mean, Israel is taking it, not taking advantage, but with the theater of the war in Iran, they are making sure that Hezbollah is gotten rid of as well.
Do you think Bibi stays in power for much longer?
I think that Israel will accomplish its task. They will be told to be quiet, and I think Bibi will probably within a year be gone.
Okay, in a year be gone. I don't disagree with that at all, actually. All right, let's get to it. Here's one that I have been following a little bit, Steve, and that's Domino's Pizza and Krispy Kreme. Still getting smacked around a little bit, but Domino's Pizza, you would think that people would be eating more pizza lately, huh?
Yeah, I think so, Steve. But I think what RFK Jr. has done is he has really planted the seed of healthy eating out there in the world, in the United States. And unless Krispy Kreme and Domino's, start pushing this health and kick, I'm not a long-term look buyer of either one of those.
Yeah, I do like this bottoming out that I saw not too long ago at $3. I did like that a lot, but I didn't touch it. I will say that and I would also add not just the healthy eating, but also the GLP-1s and 2s, right? The weight loss drugs are definitely adding to the problem here, and Pizza Hut, another one too as well. So. I made this mention a year and a half ago on Schwab Network and on CNBC that I thought that what would be really hit would be these. There we go. I'll pull up a daily chart, and I have been dead right on this massive selling here on these stocks. But I also think that these are good companies. The tick just dropped pretty heavily here. White House says President Trump is speaking with European allies and many countries in the region over opening the Strait of Hormuz. Wow. Yeah.
I know he had talked that he was leaning very heavily on NATO.
You mean the NATO that he hates, that he's pulled back all the numbers on?
Yep. And, if Europe goes the Spain route where they kind of turn their head and don't help out, as he said, if United States gets in trouble, can we count on NATO as much as they could count on us?
Right. We're hearing reports now that tornado warning in Greensboro, North Carolina. Tornado warnings all over the place now for Concord, North Carolina, Harrisburg, North Carolina, Roberta Mill, North Carolina, Greensboro, Winston-Salem, High Point. Serious weather patterns out there. We've been talking about that, Steve, that these the weather here is a major factor, and it came across the Midwest last week, and we were well ahead of that by a week, saying that the conditions were that way. That's part of it. What Quasar Markets does, we kind of have the machines now to help us through this. So I'm liking this a lot. There you go. WTI crude now. Spot crude, $94 a barrel. About to blow through the 94 handle here on the downside.
While you were on your cruise, Steve, last couple of days ago, we had tornado warnings here in northern Florida. So
I didn't see that, Steve. I saw sunny weather and dolphins, and went fishing one day, caught a bunch of fish. Sometimes you just got to take a break, man.
absolutely, Steve. I think that's a critical part. When I was as an institutional trader in New York, we were required for 2 weeks to have a vacation away from the desk. Why was it required? Because they would then come in and go through every single part of your job, your emails, your phone calls, everything, and they would make sure that you are acting in a strictly legit fashion, because we're regulated, right? So, but during that 2 weeks, you weren't allowed to call the office, nor were you allowed to take a position. So it was great. And I used to tell everyone, during your 2 weeks off, take your phone and stash it aside. Unplug yourself. Allow your batteries to recharge, And I would do it every time on my 2 week vacation. Yeah, I would sneak a peek at the markets, but for the most part, take a break. Let the brain start to think about some other things.
Yeah, and I did not do that. So I did not do that. I look at, if you think about a cruise, you think, okay, well, you don't have access to the internet. Starlink is on the internet now, is on every cruise now, and everybody's like myself had their head like down in their phone. Even on eating dinner, I couldn't stop because I had something obviously here. And with things going on here, I would like to say we got a lot of cool things coming this week, Steve. We have Media Day on Friday. You'll be a part of that, as you know.
I'll be on.
Yeah, we had 1.3 million viewers last time we did the Media Day. We got some even more special guests this time as well. We will also be releasing the new Quasar Markets quietly to those of you who are watching the show today. Wow, thank you so much for watching, by the way. Thank you, appreciate that. New AI is coming out. Everything's coming out. The new platform is coming out. The new website's coming out. And we have some very big things that are coming down the pipe that we'll have in a few weeks that you're going to be very excited about with Quasar Markets. So I cannot wait to tell you about that. There's been some new videos coming out that I just went through yesterday over the last couple of days. So, Steve, there's a lot of really cool products coming out here at Quasar Markets.
This is great, Steve. I'm telling you, this is a great source for, the retail market, for even institutional, to get involved. And, Ron and Santa being on the last day, boy, does he bring such a class act to the show.
And we're going to have the whole CNBC crew back again, the old CNBC crew. They're all coming back. Sue Herrera, Tyler Matheson. I'm very excited about that. And Bob Pisani. I love Bob Pisani, if you don't know. He's a great guy. And you and I have met him several times as well. And look, I think that, it's exciting to watch this explosive growth now in Quasar Markets. And pretty soon, Steve, it's interesting. It's only been 2.5 years. People think we've been around for decades. It's only been 2.5 years, and we've only been this for about a year. And if you think about it, I had to rethink it again. Anthropic, which we think is a brand new company, has been around for 6 years now, almost 7 years now. It'll be 7 years this year. People don't realize that, right? Even the things that you think that are brand new aren't brand new. It's just that we've been keeping everybody in the loop here at Quasar Markets, unlike everybody's trying to blah, blah, blah. I love this, Steve. I think what we're going to have in the next 5 years is something very, 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 very cool, and it'll be world changing. And I'm excited about that. Of course, the international side of this too, as well.
And it's happening fast, Steve. Right? I mean, this is my whole theory. You had me push it, and quantum convergence is where I'm looking, and the world is changing literally every moment. It is. Yeah. It's no longer a week or a month out. It's just every day seems to be a new change.
Yeah, and I see all the AI stuff on the internet, like Twitter. Oh, look at the new Claude program that are built. That's great, and I can't wait to take all of their things. We have a machine that allows you to build your own quants, your own things inside of us too as well. That's going to be a game changer for a lot of people, that they don't have to play on the outskirts anymore. They can play with the big boys now, and I like this a lot. So.
And Steve, just to counter anybody going, oh boy, here we go, AI, it's taken, look at all the jobs being lost. No, the future is not about man versus machine. I just did a conference on this. It is man and machine.
That's right.
You've got to learn how to use this. You don't cut and paste, as you were alluding to earlier in the program. Right. You basically use it and then put your own, use it as a source of information. But that source of information is instantaneous. It just makes us that much better. It's man and machine.
Yeah, one of the things that I just was pulling up was how is oil in regards to recessions, and how does it usually affect the recessions? I know that it does, but what I need to know is exact dates and times and things like that. And the AIs help me. They help me then rewrite the narrative in a way that I want to write it, and that cuts down my time. But it's still my thoughts, my critical thinking, my everything that I am. But I am concerned that critical thinking might be a thing of the past if these kids don't if they don't take this seriously, and they go, okay, I'm just going to copy and paste and turn in my homework. That's not going to work. But Steve, at the same time, I look back at when I was growing up, and teachers telling me not to use my calculator because I'll never have a calculator growing up in my hand. I got one on my wrist. I mean, it's crazy, right? And I don't even need that. So I'm okay with some of this, but I don't like to copy and paste. I think that the critical thinking skills need to be developed, and I think that should be a class in college that you take as a critical thinking class.
That's a great idea. And you're right, Steve. This is going to separate a lot of people. Those who use critical thinking and use their critical thinking and AI to help support their narrative,
right,
versus those who just cut and paste to get by. And when human beings are left for themselves, they will take the easier path. That's just a natural, way that we operate. Okay, but critical thinking is imperative, and it will be another deciding factor that separates you from the pack. Be a critical thinker. I think that's a great idea.
Trump has declined to comment on deploying ground troops in Iran. He might be slowing down on the ground troop idea here, and that's why I think you're seeing oil dropping here, 93.23 now a barrel, still dropping. SCO now up almost 5%. You're right, Steve. Could be a quick drop here in oil.
That's a red line. I don't think he's going to cross it. Troops on the ground is a red line. And I'll be clear. I support what he's doing, but that would be a red line. I would definitely be like, whoa, I'm not in favor of that.
Yeah, and I think he's also seeing that. I mean, I know Jared and Witkoff were both saying they didn't want to go into this attack, but you know what? It's putting Iran on notice, and I think Iran's run out of very good. Zora, glad to see that. Well done. Take your money and run and go home. Tick now up 771, near 601 now on Q. So, and 93.15 now on oil. Oil is continuing to drop here. I think that I'm gonna keep holding my oil short here. I'm not scared, Steve.
As I started the show, Steve,
here it is. Trump says the war will end soon. He just came out and just said Trump says the war will end soon.
There you go. And there's your oil play. Steve.
$93 now a barrel. Now we're still dropping here. Tick now up almost 900 here. RCL 281 now a share. So we're still pushing here. Steve, it just took one little message and that was it. 93.30 now on WTI.
I think you see oil 85, 87. You square up and let's take a new look and let's see the war end quick.
Yeah, I agree with that. Wow, what a good. All right, well, it's 10 o'clock, Steve. Well done. And we've got a long week. I'm super excited about this week. At the end of the week, Friday. Everybody show up Friday. I mean, it's going to be like a party. We're going to do another media day. I'm going to go all day. And it looks like Steve got the memo today because you are wearing gray. I think we're both wearing gray today. But look, I'm excited about the future here at Quasar Markets, and I'm very excited about if we can kill this these wars and get back to normal and start building in business, and I'm excited about that. So yeah, Steve, I think you're right on target.
Good things ahead, Steve. And this is the Super Bowl for the financial markets in the sense of all the central banks, 8 central banks meeting this week. So by Friday, Steve, all of it will be over, and it'll be great to talk about.
I love it. All right, Steve, I'll see you right back here on Wednesday. We have Dave Conley tomorrow. And thanks for everybody for showing up. Quasar Markets Live. Appreciate it.